everyone, my name is Vina Cahyadewi and I'm from grade 12 IPS SMA Global Sapila Puri Indah. So today I would like to invite you all and discuss a movie called The Diary of Anna Frank. A Diary of Anna Frank was a 1959 film that was directed by George Stephen with a screenplay of Francis Guthridge and Albert Hackett. The film was based on a personal diary of Anna Frank, a Jewish girl who lived in hiding with her family during the Second World War. All her writings to her diary were addressed as a diary kitty. It was published after the end of the war by her father, Otto Frank. Now, before we get into further, I want to explain briefly about the World War II, or also known as the Second World War. So the Second World War was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. World War II was fought between the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, against the Allied power, Britain, United States, Soviet Union, and France. Most of the countries in the world were involved in some way. It was the deadliest war in all human history, with around 70 million people killed. World War II started in Europe, but spread throughout the world. Much of the fighting took place in Europe and in Southeast Asia Pacific. World War II started in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. Great Britain and France responded by declaring war on Germany. The war in Europe ended with the German surrender on May 7, 1945. The war in Pacific ended when Japan surrendered on September 2nd in 1945. So, one of the evidence and legacy from the Holocaust war is the film The Diary of Anna Frank. Anne's diary begins on her 13th birthday on June 12, 1942, and ends shortly after her 15th birthday. At the start of her diary, Anne describes fairly typical girlhood experience, writing about her friendships with other girls, her crushes on boys, and her academic performances at school. On the next day, Anne and her older sister, Margot, attended the Jewish Lyceum in Amsterdam. They went to school on foot, and sometimes they allowed to rent a bicycle. The Jews were not allowed to go to the public school, but instead they have a special school for themselves, and they were being separated to other society. The Jews were not allowed to use any public transportation too. For example, buses, trams, own car, and many more. Basically, there were many strict regulations against the Jewish community. Not just they were not allowed to use a public transportation, but they were not allowed to go to the cinema, going to a park, and even for going around the city, they have to label themselves using a yellow star on their clothes, labeling as Jewish. The Franks had to move to the Netherlands in the years leading up to the Second World War to escape persecution in Germany. After the Germans invaded the Netherlands in 1940, the Franks were forced into hiding. With another family, the Van Dans and Mr. Dussel, they moved into a small secret hiding spot above Otto's Frank office where they had stockpiled food and supplies. The employees from Otto's firm helped hide the Franks and kept them supplied with food, medicine, and information about the outside world. The residents of the hiding spot paid close attention to every development of the war by listening to the radio. Some bits of the news catch Anna's attention and make their ways into her diary, providing a vivid historical context for her personal thoughts. The adults make optimistic bets about when the war will end, and their mood is severely affected by German advances. Amsterdam is devastated by the war during the 2 years the Franks are in hiding. All of the city's residents suffer since food becomes scarce and robberies more frequent. Ain often writes about her feelings of isolation and loneliness. She has an anxious relationship with the adults in the hiding spot, particularly her mother, whom she considers lacking in love and affection. She adores her father, but she is frequently scolded and criticized by Mr. and Mrs. Van Dun and Mr. Dussel. Ain thinks that her sister Margaret is way smarter, pretty, and agreeable, but she doesn't feel close to her and does not write much about her. Ain eventually develops a close friendship with Peter Van Dun, the teenage boy in the annex. Mr. Frank does not approve. However, the intensity of Ain's infatuation begins to lessen. Ain matures considerably throughout the course of her diary entries, moving from detailed accounts of basic activities to deeper, more profound thoughts about humanity and her own personal nature. She finds it difficult to understand why the Jews are being singled out and persecuted. Ain also confronts her own identity. Though she considers herself to be German, her German citizen has been revoked. And though she calls Holland as her home, many of the Dutch have turned against the Jewish. Ain feels a tremendous solidarity with her aggrieved people, and yet at the same time she wants to be seen as an individual rather than a member of a persecuted group. During the 2 years recorded in her diary, Ain deals with confinement and deprivation as well as complicated and difficult issues of growing up in the brutal situation of the Holocaust. Her diary describes a struggle to define herself within this climate of oppression. Ain's diary ends without comments on August 1st, 1944, the end of seemingly normal day that leaves us with the expectation of seeing another entry of another page. However, the Frank family is betrayed to the Nazi and arrested on August 4th, 1944. Ain's diary, the observation of an imaginative, friendly, sometimes petty, and rather normal teenage girl, comes to a sudden and a silent end. Finally, we are nearly reached to an end, but before the closing, let me share a few fun facts. Today's fun fact will be coming from the leader of Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler. Not many people actually know. Hitler himself was actually born as Jewish. Both of his parents are Jewish bloodline, and Jews at that time known as the smartest and always get the highest position in everything. But Adolf Hitler finds it different. He thinks that he was the unperfected Jewish blood. This is because how he failed getting top university that he wanted. He doesn't have the talent in doing academics, but instead more to non-core academic side, which is art. So we can say it all begins from his jealousy towards the Jewish race. And that's all for my review. Thank you for listening, and I hope all the knowledge will be beneficial for you. Goodbye and thank you. Bye bye.